The final four, Chapter 17, Malcolm McBride, 7:53 p.m. In the midst of Troy's wild celebration, with their players hugging each other and slapping hands, Malcolm won't walk off the court. His deflated teammates are already by their bench, waiting to huddle up around Coach Barker to prepare for an improbable third overtime. "McBride!" bellows Grizzly. "Mount, please, let's go," begs Baby Bear. Hearing their voices makes Malcolm's stance more solid, and the soles of his kicks grip tighter to the floor. "Go where?" Malcolm shouts back. "I know where I need to be. Do any of you?" Remember, Malcolm's really upset here because at the very end of the last chapter, Aaron Bryce shot that basically half-court shot to tie up the game and send it into overtime. And so here Malcolm is quite upset over that. Then he stares down his teammates from the middle of the court, like there isn't an ounce of real heart between them. Barker raises a pair of fingers to his mouth, whistling sharply for Malcolm. When Malcolm doesn't budge, MJ takes a first step to go after him, but an intense glare from Barker freezes MJ in his tracks. Then Barker walks out onto the court himself. "Do our guys really want to win, Coach?" asks Malcolm, shifting his weight towards Barker. "I won this game for us twice already. Am I going to have to do it again? Against a team without their best player?" The two usually act like magnets that repel each other, but at this intense moment, their polarities somehow attract. Barker puts a hand on Malcolm's lower back, escorting him toward their bench. "That's why I recruited you," says Barker in a strained voice, "because it burns inside of you to be somebody." "No joke. Better tell our guys to step it up," says Malcolm, increasing the speed of his stride and pulling away from his coach. "I can't do it all alone." "That's right, you can't," affirms Barker almost to himself. "Now when are you going to learn that?" So even this coach of his, Coach Barker, who wants to win this game so badly, recognizes that Malcolm isn't a team player, right? He hasn't been giving the ball to his team and acting like a team this entire time. He's been acting like one individual against the entire Trojan team, and he's quite upset over the fact that they are indeed going into a third overtime. And here's our flashback. November, 16 months ago. Malcolm rode the elevator downstairs with his father. Through the lobby's double glass doors, they saw Coach Barker's black Cadillac Escalade pull up to St. Antoine Street, in front of the Brewster Douglas houses. Then they walked outside together to the street to meet him. Despite the chill in the air, there was a mob of dozen dudes hanging out near the curb on the busy street, where a noisy sanitation truck was rolling forward maybe 20 yards up ahead. And when Barker stepped out of his ride, some of them recognized him right away from TV. "Yo, it's Coach B. Signed me up to play at state. I bet he's here to recruit Malcolm. I'd me a scholarship too. I can really play ball." Barker had a few words for every one of them before he said, "Boys, you'll have to excuse me now. I need to spend some important time with the McBrides." Malcolm's brow furrowed when Barker spoke to his father first. "Mr. McBride, what a pleasure to meet you, sir. I'm Edward Barker, men's head basketball coach at Michigan State University, one of the finest institutions of higher learning in the country." He shook hands with Malcolm's father. "I'm here to speak to you about your son and about securing his future." Barker and Malcolm's father began to talk as Malcolm stood there watching them. The coach had been there for maybe 2 or 3 minutes and hadn't even looked in Malcolm's direction yet, and a stream of steamy breath seemed from Malcolm's partially opened mouth as his foot tapped at the concrete. He'd heard that Barker was a baller in his day, that he was one of the toughest hard-nosed white players to ever come off the streets of Michigan. But if Malcolm had been holding a rock in his hands at that moment, he would have challenged that hotshot coach to a game of one-on-one as a real introduction. Suddenly, Barker turned to Malcolm and said, "I've been looking forward to meeting you in person for a while now. I've seen the tapes of your game. You're one of the most talented young players anywhere. That's a fact. I want to see you wearing Spartan green next year and leading Michigan State to another national championship." When he finally shook Barker's hand, Malcolm winced at the strength of his grip, and the coach took hold of Malcolm like he wasn't about to let go. Before they all went upstairs, and with a few of the dudes hanging out on the street still tuned in, Barker turned back to Malcolm's father and asked, "Is this where the tragedy happened with your daughter?" "About 30 feet away, over by that hydrant," Malcolm's father answered. "I have 2 daughters myself. I can't imagine what your family must have gone through," said Barker, bowing his head and making the sign of the cross. "Malcolm, I know about your tattoo. I respect that. I think it says a lot about who you are and what you value in life." "Thanks," said Malcolm, who was wearing long sleeves and feeling a bit like Barker had just nudged him off balance by bringing up something so personal. "Coach, how did you know all that stuff about us?" asked Malcolm. "You see, I come here asking you to join our Michigan State athletic family," he answered. "It's only right that I should be willing to be part of yours, too." Then the coach opened his wallet and pulled out a pair of $50 bills. "I need you to do me a favor and watch my truck," Barker told the oldest looking of the dudes still hanging around. "Take this money and buy the rest of these boys some lunch on me." Barker left to more cheers than Malcolm had ever heard for himself on that street. He was the 7th head coach to visit over the last month, but Barker was the only one to make that kind of impression. Before they stepped inside the project building, Barker told Malcolm's father, "You know, that's an American car I drive. I understand you're employed in the auto industry. I'm an employee of the state of Michigan. I only buy American. I wouldn't think of costing us jobs by buying from the Germans or the Japanese." So here we are, we're seeing Malcolm's first real introduction to Coach Barker when Coach Barker was recruiting him to play at Michigan State. And he throws Malcolm off balance by really focusing on Malcolm's family. He makes small talk with Malcolm's father before he even acknowledges Malcolm. He talks to Malcolm about his tattoo, gives his condolences over Malcolm's sister. So Coach Barker has really done a lot of research here to not just impress Malcolm, but really to impress Malcolm's family, hoping that Malcolm will come play for him at Michigan State. And he also shows how much he's researched by acknowledging that he knows that Malcolm's dad works at a car plant. Now, a year later, it does talk about how his dad has been laid off. But in this moment, Coach Barker's like, "I know you work at an auto plant and I support, American made. I support the jobs in Michigan," and so on and so forth. So he's really done his research. "I wish more people thought like you," said Malcolm's father. Upstairs, the coach kissed Malcolm's mama on the cheek and called her ma'am. In the living room, surrounded by a worn-out floral patterned couch and a brown leather recliner with cracked skin, Barker sighed as he picked up Trish's photo off of the coffee table. He held it by the edges, careful not to leave any fingerprints on the glass. A few minutes later, after Barker's first forkful of sweet potato pie, he said, "So, what are your expectations for me in the university, Malcolm?" "I want to play at point. I want to be the man, so I can be an NBA lottery pick after a year," said Malcolm. "You got it. You're my starting point guard, my top offensive weapon." "That easy? No other coach is promising me that. Look, you're supposed to be the real deal. If you can't hack it on the court against big-time college competition, we'll both know it." "Believe me, I can hack anything," said Malcolm, crossing both his arms in front of him. "I know you can, especially with my coaching. I'm going to add to your game tremendously. I'll take you way past the next level." "What about his education?" asked Malcolm's mama. "He'll have to go to class if he's going to play, and he'll have to pass those classes," said Barker. "Then there's the second half of the year, the following semester. Even if you're intent on turning pro, you'll have to continue to go to class. If you don't, it won't hurt you. But it could hurt the program and your teammates if we lose future scholarships because you caused us to dip below academic standards." "It's going to be that way at any school," said Malcolm. "That's the price of playing college ball." "You can't put a price on an education, son," said Malcolm's mama. "Basketball isn't forever. I don't want you to be the dumbest smart kid anybody ever knew." "Magic Johnson won a championship at MSU. He turned pro after 2 years of college and was the NBA's #1 draft pick. He owns a string of national movie theaters now and a Starbucks in downtown East Lansing," said Barker, stirring his coffee with a spoon. "Plus, East Lansing is just 93 miles from Detroit. You can drive up to visit Malcolm in 90 minutes. That's peace of mind you won't get with an out-of-state school, especially those California colleges." "You're not worried about his SAT scores?" asked Malcolm's father. "Look, I'm not surprised the NCAA made him take the test again after his score jumped so much," said Barker. "He was red flagged." Malcolm had just missed the 820 he needed to be eligible to play on his first attempt at the SAT. Then he scored over 1,200 on his next try. "You mean he was black or brown flagged?" said Malcolm's father with some bite, "because no housing project kid could possibly make that new score without some kind of cheating. That's what they're trying to say. I understand your anger and the implications, but I don't run the NCAA. I work within their rules." I took the test again. I'm waiting for my new score, said Malcolm. I know I did good. I'm sure you did well, said Barker. That was you who took the second test, right? The proctor didn't think somebody else was you by accident? I do things for myself, said Malcolm. He studied so hard for it. I saw him with my own eyes, Malcolm's father said. The first time he never studied a lick, like they're going to trade the test on his basketball skills. It's good enough for me, said Barker. Now, do I have your verbal commitment to play at Michigan State, to become a Spartan? That's not binding, a verbal commitment, said Malcolm's mama, who put down her plate of pie to make a point. I read that in the NCAA rules. You're correct, it's not. But I like to hear my recruits say it, that they want to come play for me. I'm leaning that way, said Malcolm, nodding in agreement with his parents. This family just has to make one promise to me, said Barker. Plenty of people over the next year are going to want to be your new best friends. And the more success Malcolm has, the more they'll show up at your front door. There'll be agents, managers, and people who want to give you money, cars, maybe a rent-free house. Don't take a thing from any of them. It's all an investment on their part to get close to your son and gain a part of his future NBA income. If you take any illegal benefits, the NCAA could declare him ineligible to play in college, and that could put a big dent in his career, maybe cost him millions in the draft. Mr. Barker, my wife and I have lived in project buildings all of our lives. Same for my son, said Malcolm's father. But he's the one who's going to get himself out through his own talents. We're not going to let anybody sabotage that for a gift or the loan of a few dollars. Not in our lifetime. So this visit seems to go really well with Coach Barker, and they're both very honest with one another. Malcolm point blank tells Coach Barker, hey, I only plan for playing for you for 1 year, and then I want to go pro. And Barker says, okay, I hear you on that. I understand. And he says, I'd love to have a verbal commitment from you that you're going to come play for me next year, but I need one promise for you, right? And that is that you're not going to take anything from anyone that they try to offer you, because that's illegal. Again, this is, a time before NIL where students could make money through various deals and so forth. Okay, he could get in big trouble for taking anything here. So Coach Barker says, please make sure you don't take a single thing from anyone to jeopardize your future.